You know, I wasn't going to touch this subject because of all the controversy surrounding it, and it's the sort of thing that I would generally try and stay away from. But this whole situation's been blown so out of proportion, and it's got so ridiculous now that I felt the need, finally to make a video on this whole thing. As I'm sure you're aware by now, there's a new Ghostbusters film coming out this year. I'm sure everyone's aware of that. 'Cause there's a lot of drama and a lot of criticism going around from different sides of this debate, I guess you can call it. And I just felt the need to offer my sort of like opinion on this because there's something I saw on Facebook today from Dan Aykroyd, and I wanted to comment on that. But before I get to that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the situation and my thoughts on it because while I'm addressing this situation with Dan Aykroyd, I might as well address my thoughts on the actual film. As you can see, this isn't an actual video because I'm not really in a position to do that right now, so you're going to have to listen to my voice instead. But it is what it is. This is just the best way I can get a video out to you today. Basically, if you're not aware by now and you've been living under a rock, new Ghostbusters film coming out this year. It stars three females, I think, Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, and someone else as the new Ghostbusters. A lot of people on both sides of the argument are pissed off with the other side, to say the least. You've got people who don't want to see the film um, for various reasons, and then you've got people who are annoyed that there are people who don't want to see the film because they're crying sexism because it's an all-female cast. Now, while I have seen a bit of sexism from the detractors of this film, I wouldn't sit here and say that the majority of people who don't want to see this film are sexist because that's not the impression I'm getting. And generally, sexists don't generally try and hide that. In my experience, anyway, from what I've seen from actual sexists. Um, in my opinion, people don't seem to want to watch the film because, yeah, okay, them recasting the classic characters as female might be um, a bit of an issue for some people. But again, that isn't sexism to say these are characters that I loved as a kid and don't want to see them recast as the opposite gender. I'm sure they would say the same thing about female characters they loved in the past who would be played by males. But again, all that's conjecture. I haven't got any proof that that would be the case, but that's the impression I'm getting from these people. And while I don't share that opinion because I am under the impression that remakes are okay if they offer a different take on the story, so changing a character's gender would be okay as far as I'm concerned because it's offering a new perspective on the story. Generally, it seems that people don't like this film because the jokes seem forced, which they do. So it doesn't seem authentically funny. It seems like they're trying too hard to make it funny, and a lot of the jokes just aren't funny. I sat there not laughing at a lot of the things that they were saying. You know, the effects don't look as bad as some people are saying, in my opinion, but they definitely don't look terrifying or scary. Um, I'm not sure why that is. They don't look. I've seen people say they look worse than the 1984 version. They don't, in my opinion. They look better than in the 1984 version, but that's something I will definitely disagree with the detractors of this film on. I don't think the effects look that bad from the trailers, but the comedy aspect, it definitely looks like a dominating part of this film. Whereas in the originals, it was funny because the characters were witty and they had personality, and the humor came organically. But in this film, it seems like they're just trying to either recreate jokes from the originals in a very forced manner, or it's kind of slapstick comedy and done in the worst possible way. So in my opinion, that's kind of what ruins this film for me. They're trying too hard to be funny, too much of the time, and it just seems like that's all this film's going to be. And I do not want to sit through that for an hour and a half. I'm going to be honest with you. That seems like hell to me. So, I mean, there are people like Angry Video Game Nerd who expressed honest to God, genuine reasons why he didn't want to see this film, and people were sitting there saying he was sexist, but he barely brought sex up at all in his video. He did mention it, now and then because obviously you've kind of got to in this situation, but he didn't really mention the characters being female as necessarily a bad thing. But he got all this criticism because of the fact that people um they said he was being sexist and that he just didn't want to see a film starring women, which obviously isn't the case because films like Frozen, for example, which starred, primarily two female leads, was generally accepted and well reviewed by a lot of people. Frozen was very, very popular, and there's a lot of other films, especially that have come out recently, starring either all or the majority female cast, which have all been generally liked. So to say that it's, a sexism problem, you would have to prove that, and historically speaking, films that star either mostly or all female cast generally don't get this level of sort of dislikes. So I'm not convinced that sexism plays a part into it. So that's just a general outline of my thoughts on the new Ghostbusters film. Personally, I'm not a die-hard Ghostbusters fan, so I couldn't care one way or the other. It's not my childhood. I did see it as a child once or twice, but I never really got I never really got as into it as a lot of other people did. I had a few Ghostbusters toys. I watched it a few times, but I was never fanatic about it. I was always into Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever else at the time. So, I mean, I was born about just under 10 years after the original Ghostbusters came out, anyway. So maybe people who were born around sort of like the 80s have more of a connection to it than me. Personally, it wasn't a huge part of my childhood, so I'm not going to sit here and act like it was. But if we can take it now to a post on Facebook made by Dan Aykroyd, which really actually pissed me off. Let's take it to that now. As originator of the original, saw test screening of new movie. Apart from brilliant, genuine performances from the cast, both male and female, it has more laughs and scares than the first two films. Plus, Bill Murray is in it. As one of the millions of man fans and race dance, I'm paying to see that and bring in all my friends. So let's just look at this statement. Let's just have a look at this post from Dan Aykroyd. As originator of the original, so right there, he's separating himself, he's distancing himself from the project. He's saying, as an observer from the outside looking in, this is my opinion. Which, if I take you to Google, it says right here, executive producer Dan Aykroyd. So he's not on the outside. He has a stake in this film doing well. He's not exactly standing on the outside of this film, just sort of like offering his unbiased opinion. He has a stake in this film doing well, and he had a part in the creation of the project as well. He also has a brief cameo appearance in it. His credited as taxi driver, so it doesn't seem like a huge part. But again, he's not this unbiased sort of outsider looking in that he's trying to paint himself out to be. Just in the first few words, as originator of the original, he's sitting here just saying, as someone in the original Ghostbusters, I'm looking on the outside looking in, just like everybody else. But obviously, that isn't the case. He had a big part. He's the executive producer. He had a big part in the making of this film. I'm doing film studies at uni. I've made enough films to know executive producers have kind of a big hand in the making of a film, from the pre-production, production, and post-production stages. Um, the next sentence, saw test screening of the new movie. I would hope you did as the executive producer. But again, that's not your only involvement in the film like you're trying to make it out to be. Apart from brilliant, genuine performances from the cast, both female and male, so again, there he's, that much is not really hiding the truth. He's mentioning gender, which is always a case with the people who are for this film. They're always the ones who bring gender into it. So that's just a bit typical. That doesn't really piss me off much. It has more laughs and scares than the first two films. That's a subjective opinion. He's passing it off as fact. But you know what? Even if that is his personal opinion, which obviously his opinion has to be doubted because of his stake in this film. Even if it's true, you know what? That's fair enough. If that's his opinion, that's his opinion. I'm not going to sit here and say his opinion is wrong, because that's ridiculous. Plus, Bill Murray's in it. I don't think the original cast not being in the film is the issue people have. I mean, I think people have more issue if the original three were in it, considering the fact that Harold Ramis is dead. So if he was in the film, I think people would have a bit more to say if they somehow managed to get him in the film. So I don't think the fact that the original Ghostbusters aren't in it is an issue for people. I don't think people mind the fact that they've recast the film, because, as I said, you can't remake the film with the original three at this point. As one of the million man fans and race dance, the only part of that that's true is the fact that he was race dance in the original film. Um, Again, you might be a fan of the film, I don't know, but you're not just one of the millions of man fans. You don't have the same objective view of this film as, say, I do. I'd be making a shitload of money if I had the same involvement as you. You try to put us on equal playing field when it comes to this film, but if this film does well, you're the one making the millions, not me. So again, you're trying to say, hey, I'm just like all of you guys, just offering my opinion, but you're not, because you're the one standing to make a load of money. And then it says here, I'm paying to see that and bringing all my friends. No, you're not. You're getting paid to see that and bringing all your friends. The only part of that is true is that your friends will be paying to see it. You won't. You will be getting paid to see it. So I wanted to comment on this because this has actually pissed me off because, I mean, there's marketing for a film, and then there's flat out hiding the truth and lying to the potential customer base to actually raise your own bottom, your own bottom dollar, your own income from the film, and that's shady as fuck. Like, that needs to be commented on more. I've not seen any YouTube videos where anyone's mentioned this, but this Facebook post from Dan Aykroyd, it was made how many hours ago? 13 hours ago. I've not seen anything on YouTube about this or anyone reporting about this, but this is blatant, I guess, false advertising in a way. I mean, he's literally lying and hiding the truth about his involvement in this film, acting like he's just, some some unbiased sort of, bystander saying, "Hey, this film looks pretty good." But in actuality, he's the executive producer for the film. Like, I can't even stress how shady this is. I needed to make a bit of a rant on this because Dan Aykroyd is honestly lying to potential customers. And last time I checked, that was illegal. If you're trying to sell a product and you're lying to people or you're hiding facts that they should know, when it comes to bias or things like that, surely that's illegal. Surely that's actually a case of false advertising. And it's this kind of dodgy practice that really pisses people off. And now, the film's shit anyway to begin with. At least it looks shit. I want to point out it looks shit. It could be the best film ever made. I highly doubt it, but I've not seen the film, so I can't say it is shit. It looks shit at the moment. Now, instead of me just saying I'm not seeing it because it looks crap, now I'm not seeing it based on the principle. Now I'm not seeing it because of the fact that Dan Aykroyd is actively lying to people and trying to get them to see the film by, making himself out to be someone he's not. And that's shady as fuck, and I don't condone this sort of action at all. I mean, it'd be fine if he said, as the executive producer, I've listened to all your criticisms, I personally disagree, please go out and see the film anyway, the trailer can't tell you everything. That would be fine. I would accept that and think, you know what, that's fine, that seems genuine. He's accepting people's criticisms and all that sort of thing. There's all sorts of damage control you can do as the executive producer. It's not even the fact that he didn't say he was the executive producer, it's the fact that he actively tried to hide it and tried to paint himself to be just this unbiased bystander. And honestly, in my opinion, that's wrong on so many levels. It's disgusting practice, and in my opinion, represents everything that's wrong with the film industry because we all know Hollywood is smoke and mirrors anyway. We all know it's the fakest place on the planet. But there's being fake and then there's actively lying to the potential customers, and that's wrong. If I went outside and started flogging something and started lying about its benefits or my involvement with the product, there's all sorts of laws against that. It's it's exactly like on The Simpsons. The Simpsons episode where Grandpa and Homer have their sex tonic, and Grandpa pulls Homer up out the crowd, and he's like, "Sir, we've never met before, have we?" And then the guy in the crowd kind of rightly points out that Homer's face is on the bottle. It's the exact same situation. Dan Aykroyd is doing that really sort of classic, "Oh, I've never met you before, sir. What do you think of this product?" sort of act. And it is an act, and it's deceiving, and it's damage control on the most shadiest levels. I mean, even a quick Google search could show me that Dan Aykroyd is not this. I'm not this great, prognosticator or anything like that. I haven't deduced it from days worth of research. I've done a quick Google search, and one of the first things that came up is executive producer Dan Aykroyd. So I don't know whether Aykroyd was deliberately doing this. In my opinion, he probably was, but he has done one of the most shady salesman tactics in the book. And based on that, I will not be seeing this film out of protest of Dan Aykroyd, employing these sorts of tactics. and I'm not telling anyone else what to do. But I definitely recommend other people stand by this, because this is a principle. This is our principle now. Like, even if you want to see the film, I recommend you don't, because Hollywood needs to have a big kick up the arse, and they need to hear that they can't just do whatever the fuck they want, lying to the customers, and expect us to just take it, because it's wrong on so many levels. So I've lost so much respect for Dan Aykroyd, and honestly, I probably won't even be watching the original Ghostbusters for a long time, out of protest. Even the original Ghostbusters. Don't want anything to do with the franchise at all, personally. I know that's going to piss off a lot of people, especially the people who sit there and say, "Oh, it was my childhood." You know what? If it was your childhood, fantastic. You know what? That's fine. Just don't watch the new Ghostbusters out of principle, because Dan Aykroyd has just employed literally one of the most shadiest salesman tactics in the book, and that should definitely not get rewarded. And we need to send a message to Hollywood: this sort of bullshit won't fly. We as the consumers are a lot more powerful and a lot more influential over Hollywood than they seem to give us credit for. So the best way of speaking to these people is by not giving them our money. So I say that's exactly what we do. If you want to see the film, you know what? There's 101 torrent sites out there. I'm not going to explicitly tell anyone to torrent the film. I'm just saying that option is out there. That's all I'm going to say. This has turned into a big ass rant, so I'm going to end it here because I've said all I'm going to say. There's nothing I can say now without repeating myself. I'm going to link to the Facebook post. Don't know how long it's going to be before Aykroyd deletes it, but I definitely recommend going to check it out and then Google it, because it is honestly, I'm actually gobsmacked by the fact that he actually thought this was going to work. And his comment section is completely full of people, disagreeing with him and telling him he's a twat and things like that, but no one really, apart from me and my friends Andrus, have actually commented on it and said, you know what, you're not this unbiased part of, audience member that you're trying to make yourself out to be. So I don't think this is very common knowledge, but it definitely needs to be brought up, because it's definitely important. So thank you for watching this video. Please drop a comment in the comment section below. Like this video, share it on social media. Seriously, we need to show Hollywood this shit is not, it's not going to be justified by us. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.